Welcome back. Toward the end of the campaign, Hillary Clinton kept questioning whether or not Donald Trump would accept the will of the people or contest the outcome of the election. But last night, about 20 minutes after Newsmax TV became the first television outlet to say that Donald Trump had won, Clinton's campaign chair, John Podesta, addressed the capacity crowd at the Javits Center. Now, what he had to say was, go home. And then, of course, later on, Hillary called Mr. Trump. But it was kind of curious how that whole thing went down. Let's talk about last night, the results and the aftermath with our good friend Joe Pags. You hear him and you see him right here on Newsmax TV each weeknight at 6 Eastern. Joe, thanks for the time. It was kind of curious. We left the air thinking, uh-oh, the Clinton forces are going to contest this. Do you think there was a change of heart or a cold, calculating look at the numbers early this morning?
I think that they really didn't believe it. I think they were in horrible disbelief. I think they thought they'd still get Michigan. I think that they didn't believe Wisconsin. I don't think they believed Pennsylvania. I'm not sure they believed Florida. And I think that they were immediately thinking, because I think John Podesta said something to this effect last night. He said, we want to make sure every vote counted. So I think that they were laying the groundwork for a long legal battle. And then when it turned out to be so overwhelming, they had to turn and say, well, she went ahead and did concede last night. It was interesting, though, because you alluded to this point. The whole run-up to this was Donald Trump might not accept the outcome of the election, and for a good 20, 30, 40 minutes last night, it looked like Hillary Clinton wasn't going to concede. So it was very interesting.
But once she conceded, she offered a speech this morning that was fairly gracious. Is Hillary taking her leave in a way that for her was graceful?
Well, I think that it was most probably the most graceful, non-attacking speech I have heard. There were still some hidden messages in there, like girls somehow lost out or women somehow lost out, and don't take this to mean that you can't achieve girls. But she was very gracious in that she didn't attack him directly, said that he's the president, I've offered my help. I thought Barack Obama did a wonderful job today, going from he's a hate-filled, xenophobic, no good racist to he's our president now and will help the transition go forward. It's very interesting to see how different people are today than they were 24 hours ago.
And Joe, if only they had listened to you and me, because we've been talking this. We said, look, Trump is going to win this thing. And he pulled it off. Go ahead, sir.
Well, we've been saying that for a long time. I'm here in San Antonio area of Texas, and Bexar County, where San Antonio is blue, went blue, and there's a county just north of us went blue. The rest of the state is red. But you would not believe the run-up to this election, JD. In this very state, it's going to be blue. It's going to be 1 or 2 points either way. I said on my show consistently he's going to win by 10, and guess what? He won by 10 in Texas. This thing wasn't anywhere near as close as people assumed it was going to be, and if it was going to be close, it would go for Hillary Clinton, they thought, in the individual states. But when he gets the Rust Belt and the manufacturing belt and the evangelicals show up, I believe, to vote against Clinton, not necessarily to vote for Trump, but when they showed up en masse, where they didn't do that for Romney, this thing became an awfully long night. And you're right, you and I predicted this a long time ago, and I think that people thought that we were puffing, but we weren't. I mean, this really was, the writing was really on the wall if you cared to read it.
Yeah, and it became pretty clear even, I often say last night, but technically it was early this morning. I mean, here we were on Newsmax TV in America Votes 2016. It was around 20 minutes until 2 Eastern Time. The Associated Press called Pennsylvania for Trump.
Right.
We took a look at the vote total. We said, there's the 20. He's up to 274. And yet you take a look at the alphabet networks and their cable cousins, and they waited, and they waited, and they waited some more. Now, Mr. Trump has continually maintained that collectively the media is just dishonest and does not cover him fairly. Was that even the case of the declaration of Mr. Trump's victory early this morning?
It's even the case today. First and foremost, because Newsmax called it last night, I don't know if you know this, but I went on Facebook Live and I had tens of thousands of viewers immediately. Because you guys called it when you did, you were in the front of this. And I don't know why the other networks were afraid to call it. I think they thought Philadelphia would show up or something in Pennsylvania and flip-flop the whole thing. But I hit the air. I hit the broadcast air on the internet. You guys were on the air with it. And if nothing else, we've proven that when Martha Raddatz almost starts crying on the air, an ABC News reporter, somebody who moderated a debate, almost bursts into tears because of the result. You know that everything Trump has said leading up to this was absolutely true. In fact, today I was on the treadmill, and Julie Chen is on that talk show or whatever it is, and she played a snippet from Donald Trump's speech. The audience erupted in applause, and she gave them the dirtiest look and didn't applaud. Then she played some Hillary Clinton. They all applauded, included she applauded. And then they played some Barack Obama. They all applauded, and she applauded to that. So even today, she was biting her lip and biting her tongue because as somebody from CBS, married to Les Moonves, she still is in disbelief. I think what we found out here, JD, is that New York City is not America, that Hollywood is not America, that pop culture is not America. It turns out people not working jobs they know how to do very well because manufacturing has left and business has left, that's America, and they proved it loudly and clearly.
The other interesting thing about this is the fact that Mr. Trump received, for lack of a better term, what we might call friendly fire. I mean, there was George W. Bush and former First Lady Laura Bush going to great pains to say, hey, we left the top of the ballot blank when they went to vote yesterday. Now, as you pointed out, Texas easily stayed red Republican, but this insistence by Bush 43 and Mrs. Bush not to vote for the top of the ticket, echoed by his younger brother Jeb, what do you make of this kind of behavior?
Well, how about their father, who actually out and out voted for Hillary Clinton? I think the behavior is reprehensible. Look, the one thing that Ronald Reagan said was never say in a scant word or nary in a scant word about another Republican. You can disagree, and you know, you can say, here are the individual items, you know, with which I disagree with this guy. But at the end of the day, he was more like you politically and value-wise than the other side was. There was no reason to be so open and boisterous about the fact that you either weren't voting at all for president or that you voted for the Democrat. Interestingly, today, as you already know, George W. Bush picked up the phone and called Mr. Trump, and I'll do anything I can to help you out now. You're my president. We pray for you. Well, maybe you should have prayed for him as you were voting, you know, as you were leaving that line blank yesterday. That was an odd move, and I don't know if he thought that it would be effective to stop people in Texas from voting voting for Trump, because it didn't work. I mean, he won by 10 points. I think the Bush family should probably take a deep breath, realize that they can help more than they can hurt, and stop this infighting. I think that you make a great point with that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the statement issued by George W. Bush. He offered it via Twitter. Yeah. Getting all my social media. It was a long night and early morning. The other thing, his younger brother Jeb, point, put out a statement of his own. Here's the thing I'm wondering, and there's the statement from Bush 43 this morning. I called the president-elect as you pointed out. Here's the thing I'm wondering. To get him inside the tent rather than keeping him outside the tent, should President Trump consider making Governor Jeb Bush his next ambassador to Mexico? What do you think of that notion?
That'd be really interesting because Jeb speaks Spanish. Of course, he's married to a Latina. I think that would be a great olive branch to put out. And for those who are listening and watching right now thinking there's no way on earth that would happen, just take a look at the example of Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. There was hatred. There was vitriol. And in the last week, who was out there on the stump for Donald Trump and Mike Pence? It was Ted Cruz. So I think that you can mend that fence. I think that you do offer it to Jeb. If Jeb is smart, he takes it, and he becomes part of the administration. And if he has any aspirations in 4 or 8 years, maybe that helps him out. But I think it would be great to show Trump would then at that point take such a higher road than the entire Bush family did. I think you at least make the offer, and I think that that's a very good suggestion. We'll see if it happens, but I think it would be a very smart move by a Trump who needs to now unify people behind him, especially in his own party.
Last 30 seconds, Joe, talking about unification. Early this morning in his speech declaring victory, Mr. Trump was very measured, very diplomatic. Did that rate as his best speech of the campaign? 20 seconds.
I think the Gettysburg speech was probably better, but it was exactly the right tone and right tenor last night. Talked to a financial expert a little while ago. He says the market's turned around because of what Trump said and how he said it, JD.
All right, a guy who we always like to hear say what he says because of what we call in the business those deep pipes. Joe Pags, thanks very much tonight from San Antonio. Now, why did Donald Trump have so much success with millennials? Well, Christy Kunzig joins us to discuss that and a whole lot more as our post-election edition of Newsmax Prime continues.